Welcome to Chapter 5, our first chapter on an organ, the skin. This organ, the integumentary system, is our first line of defense from any kind of invader, and it's composed of the cutaneous membrane or skin, plus the accessory structures such as hair, nails, sweat glands, oil glands, and so on. So you need to get comfortable with the skin. There's a picture of skin in Moodle printed out, identify all the different structures of the skin. You will notice that there are layers to the skin. The outermost layer is the epidermis. Epi means above, and this is made of stratified squamous epithelium. The cutaneous membrane consists of the epidermis and the underlying dermis, and that underlying dermis consists of two layers, the papillary layer, which is made up of areolar tissue, and the reticular, deeper layer, which is made of dense, irregular connective tissue. The deep to the dermis is the hypodermis or subcutaneous layer, which is fat storage. Accessory structures include hair, nails, and exocrine gland. And there is a cutaneous plexus, which is a network of arteries and veins associated with the integumentary tissues. Functions of the integumentary system include protection from microorganisms, protection from impact and scratching and abrasion and fluid loss, chemical attack. The skin produces melanin, which is a darkening to protect the skin from ultraviolet radiation. The skin produces keratin, a waterproofing protein. The skin coordinates immune response to pathogens and to skin cancers, and the skin excretes salts, water, and organic wastes. The skin maintains normal body temperature through the underlying insulation in the subcutaneous layer. The skin produces vitamin D, which is later converted to calcitriol, but that's important in absorbing calcium in our diet. The skin stores lipids and is responsible for a lot of sensory input, detecting light touch, deep touch, pressure, pain, and hot and cold. The skin is multiple layers. The outer layer is the epidermis. Below that is the dermis. You can see that this epidermis, the underlying layer of the epidermis is wavy, the epidermal ridge, and that is attached to the dermis, which has dermal papillae, and this increases surface area for better attachment. The major cell type is the keratinocyte. It will produce keratin, that waterproofing protein. The outermost layer, the epidermis, is stratified, so it consists of multiple layers of cells. The deepest layer of the epidermis contains stem cells which multiply to keep producing the skin. So we have two types of skin: thin skin, which has 4 layers, and this covers most of the body surface. Here the epidermis is as thick as a plastic sandwich bag. The other type of skin is thick skin. Thick skin is found on the palms of the hand and the soles of the feet. This skin has 5 layers, and it is as thick as a paper towel. We have ridge patterns on our fingertips, and we use these fingertips obviously to identify people. Characteristics of the epidermis, which is the outermost layer. It is avascular, therefore receiving all of its nutrients and oxygen from the underlying dermis. The layer that is closest to the dermis and therefore will receive the most nutrients and oxygen are the cells with the highest metabolic demand because they divide so rapidly. Those cells in the deepest layer, that layer is called stratum basale. Stratum means layer. Those cells divide and take 7 to 10 days to reach the outermost layer called the stratum corneum. So you have to know the layers of the epidermis. You might as well learn all 5 layers now, even though thin skin only contains 4 layers. So remember, BSGLC, baby squirrels get little corn. BSGLC. The B represents the deepest layer of the epidermis, stratum basale. This is attached to the underlying basement membrane by connections called hemidesmosomes. And here in the stratum basale are the basal cells that will divide to replace those skin cells that are abraded or lost. Merkel cells here respond to touch. The second layer, S, stratum spinosum, is the spiny layer, looks spiny on a prepared slide, and this contains dendritic cells that are part of our immune response, defending us from both infection and skin cancer. So here are all 5 layers, BSGLC, baby squirrels get little corn, stratum basale, stratum spinosum, stratum granulosum, stratum lucidum, stratum corneum. The deepest layer is stratum basale, and the largest layer is stratum corneum. Stratum granulosum, in this layer most cells have stopped dividing, but they're making that protein keratin, and the cells become thinner and flatter and thicker as they mature. The 4th layer is stratum lucidum, found only in thick skin, and these cells are dead, filled with keratin, very, very flat. And then the outermost layer, the stratum corneum, all of these cells are keratinized, they're dead. They're tightly connected by connections called desmosomes. You may have had a sunburn where your skin peeled off. Those layers are connected those cells are connected to each other in that layer that you peel off by desmosomes. The stratum corneum is water resistant but not waterproof, and it is many layers of keratinized cells. Basale, spinosum, granulosum, lucidum, corneum. Which region of the skin contains irregular, dense connective tissue? That answer wasn't in that slide. The correct answer is D, the reticular layer of the dermis. Which of the following connects to the epidermal ridges to form a high surface area of connection between the dermis and epidermis? The correct answer is dermal papillae. Which of the following, when broken, allows the outer layer of the epidermis to be shed? Desmosomes. Which region of the skin contains keratinocytes? Epidermis. Our skin color is determined by pigments, keratin, and melanin. It is also determined by the amount of circulation. So you'll notice if there is greater circulation, such as you're hot, the capillaries to the skin will open up and more blood will flow to the skin. You will look red. The skin color is determined by the thickness and the amount of keratinization, as well as exposure to ultraviolet radiation, which would increase the amount of melanin. The difference in skin pigmentation results from different levels of pigment production, not different numbers of melanocytes. So here we are in thin skin. The basement membrane is what connects the epidermis to the underlying dermis, and there you're going to find melanocytes in that deepest layer, the stratum basale. Carotene is an orange-yellow pigment, most apparent in the stratum corneum of light-skinned people. You can overeat your carrots and become very orange. Carotene is found in orange and yellow vegetables. Melanin is a brown, yellow-brown, or black pigment. There are different forms of melanin. It's produced by melanocytes that are found in the stratum basale, and it's packaged into melanosomes, or melanin bodies, that are transferred to keratinocytes when irradiated by ultraviolet radiation. And this melanin will be found above the nucleus to protect the nucleus from UV radiation. The DNA actually breaks with UV radiation, so the melanin is going to protect the DNA. Larger melanosomes result in darker-skinned individuals. So here's this melanocyte. Keep in mind the basement membrane is what attaches the epidermis to the underlying dermis. The melanin is produced by melanocytes. It's packaged into melanosomes, and the melanosomes are transferred to other cells, to the keratinocytes, and carotene is an orange-yellow pigment. So you can see in each cell here, the nucleus, that melanin will be found superficial to the nucleus, protecting that nucleus from the sun's rays. Hemoglobin is the red pigment found in our red blood cells. Hemoglobin is what carries or grabs onto the oxygen to carry it inside the red blood cell. So blood flows to the dermis through a subpapillary plexus. More blood flow to the region results in redder color. Flushed skin with fever is red because of the dilated superficial blood vessels. If you're hot, those blood vessels are dilated and you'll be red as well. Less blood flow results in cyanosis. Cyan means blue, so the region looks bluish. Lower oxygen levels make the hemoglobin darker red. Blood is never red and blue. It is either bright red or dark red, and lower oxygen levels make it dark red. Through our skin, it makes the skin look bluish, and we'll see this where the skin is thin, in our lips and beneath our nails. You can see the subcutaneous plexus, you can see the papillary plexus, the blood supply to the skin. Which cells increase pigment production when the skin is exposed to sunlight? Well, you got that. It's melanocytes. In which of the following circumstances will cyanosis occur? Suffocating, not getting enough oxygen. Skin cancers are covered in this chapter. It's the most common type of skin cancer. Basal cell carcinoma is the most common form. It originates in the stratum basale. Rarely metastasized, that means it rarely spreads, and it's due to a mutation caused by the sun, UV radiation. Squamous cell carcinoma is the second most common, also found in areas of the sun-exposed skin, and it's more likely to metastasize. Treatment for both is surgical removal of the tumor. Malignant melanoma is the most serious form of skin cancer. These grow rapidly and metastasize, so you need to look for this kind of skin cancer. It's irregular in shape, border, and color, large, more than 1/2 centimeter in diameter, and it's raised beyond the skin surface. Which of the following is most likely to indicate the most serious form of skin cancer? A darkly pigmented raised area.